Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. It's quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good mic work. Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good mic work commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday, psych. Actually, it's a Sunday. We are back at you here with your Winged Eagle podcast, coming at you 1 day late and 1 hour late. 1 day and 1 hour late, coming up at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. on the East Coast here on Sunday instead of Saturday due to my very, very busy work schedule. I'm sorry that we were not up here yesterday, but here we are now to talk about a few things, and I think this is going to be a relatively casual podcast. I have had an unbelievably busy week at my other job. It's the busiest time of year for me at my restaurant, so things are a little bit busy and hectic throughout the months of July and August. So I kind of pre-warned you guys there were going to be some inconsistencies in the podcast schedule and the video schedule, maybe just for the next few weeks until I get on the other side of this. And once we get into Labor Day and the fall and the winter, everything will just be peachy over here on the channel. But I knew it was going to be hard to get up here to elaborate more on the Vince McMahon situation and talk about last night's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view, which was really really good. I got a chance to watch it late last night, and I'll tell you what, man, that fucking tag team title match main event was the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Unreal. Really fun pay-per-view last night, and some drama that just came out today about last night regarding Jonathan Gresham walking out and asking for his release. Very unhappy with the way his booking and I guess his match with Claudio went down. Of course, that opened the show, and I think they only gave him a few minutes, 9 minutes or something like that, and it was a rather abrupt ending, and a lot of people were questioning the booking of that. So we'll talk about what we know in terms of that, but probably overall we're mostly just going to review last night's show, talk about the good and bad. But again, I was kind of watching it on high speed last night. I even had to work this morning, so everything that I've prepared here for the podcast was done last night. I've only been home for about an hour, so I kind of am just going by my notes from last night, and I figured there's a lot of stuff to talk about regarding Vince McMahon now that we haven't had a couple of days for that news to settle. They've already had a show on SmackDown on Friday where Stephanie McMahon led a thank you Vince chant. We may have already seen some small, subtle changes without Vince at the helm, but we're also going to talk about Vince McMahon himself and if he's really, truly going to stay away, because there's much more to this story than just what's on the surface. Vince McMahon is not completely gone from WWE. He's still the majority shareholder and wields a lot of power in that company, and we'll see if that rises back up in the future. We're going to kind of talk about stuff like that, and Stephanie taking over as CEO, Triple H resuming his role as VP of Talent Relations, and how TV and business moving forward could affect WWE both positively and negatively. And I think when it comes to talent being attracted to WWE, I actually think Vince McMahon being gone is going to be very, very beneficial to them. And we've already heard about some of the rumblings in terms of talent who used to be in NXT got released after, Triple H left and, took that large time off and that large break. Now that he's back in power, signing people and probably doing a fair amount of recruiting himself, we could see the balance of power, and basically we could have a really true awesome wrestling war about who can pro wrestle better, WWE or AEW, and it should be fun finding out. So I think in the long run, the Vince McMahon story will benefit WWE in a lot of ways, but still a lot of skepticism and speculation as to how much Vince McMahon is really going to be pushed off to the sidelines, because there's no rule or no law that says he cannot text people and cannot consult with people and not give advice and give input, and all of that could still very much be in play in the WWE. So we'll kind of talk about all of that. That's going to be basically the meat and potatoes of the podcast, just discussing Vince, the future of WWE, what we may or may not see. We got SummerSlam coming up next Saturday, or this coming Saturday, should say, and we'll discuss a little bit of that, and of course talk about Death Before Dishonor last night, and that's going to kind of be it. Normally, I'm much more prepared. We have many more subjects to talk about, so anything else we discuss today will probably be courtesy of you guys asking questions or wondering my opinions about specific things. So I apologize for the slightly less organized podcast this week, but like I said, it was either this or nothing because I've been very busy, but there's more I want to say and talk about and discuss with you guys regarding Vince and stuff. So instead of a Sunday night watch along, which should return either next week or the week after, in lieu of that, figured we'd come up and do a Sunday Winged Eagle podcast instead. I got a lot of classic pay-per-view watch alongs I want to get done in the month of August. Since SummerSlam landed in July, we're still going to continue with some SummerSlams in August. In terms of the watch along schedule, I have two that I want to do. We're going to do SummerSlam 1990, and we're going to do Fully Loaded 2000, a couple of shows 10 years apart. Really fun. We've been talking about those lately, so that probably won't be next week. It'll be the first couple of weeks in August. We'll knock those out and try to be up here for as many classic watch-alongs as we can during the month of August. But July is just real tough for me right now at work. So that's kind of it for the pleasantries. Nothing else really to tell you about in terms of videos. Tomorrow night is Monday Night Raw. I don't expect to be up here to do a review on that. We did a review last Monday because there was a lot I needed to catch up on from being out of town in Hawaii for the past week. So we did a Raw review last week, but I'm not anticipating anything too crazy happening tomorrow night. So we'll probably skip that, and we'll be back for the watch along on Wednesday for Dynamite, which is going to be Fight for the Fallen and the return of Bryan Danielson to the ring, which we learned about on the media scrum last night. So should still be a fun week of wrestling despite how fucking busy I happen to be right now. But I'm going to go over here to the chat, say hi to you guys, make sure you can see and hear me. We look good. All right, we're good there. I can be seen, heard, right on. So before we get into all that, let me say hi to the chat. People like Billy, Beetle, 911, Rodrigo, Lumpy Monkey, Jay Cherry is in the house. We got WWEF fan, Sam, and Steven Scott chiming in with a $10 drop right off the bat. Hey, good mic work. Whenever you do a top list again, here are some suggestions. Top 10 favorite matches from the Golden Era, New Generation, Attitude, Ruthless Aggression, or PG. I like all of those. I think I could easily pick one from the Golden Era, definitely the New Generation, and the Attitude Era. Ruthless Aggression might be a little hard to nail just one down, but I could try. And the PG Era, I already know what I'm going to pick there. So that is a good idea. I haven't done a top 10 list in a while. I should do those again. I haven't done a general basic Q&A in a while either. So these are things that maybe I should work on this fall. So thank you for the reminder on that, Steven, and thank you for being here. Trey Williams wants Vince McMahon back. Trey Williams, you are on crack. Roderick, what's up? I think I got you earlier. Jay Lambo, David Hosey is in the house. We got Destiny, Jet the Hawk, Hassan. We've got James Williams, Deshaun Robinson, Big J, Rarely Even, and Barry MK. Homie from Hawaii, bunch of friends in here in the chat. That's awesome. Andy Linnell, good to see you as well. Ben and David Brown, very good to see you. I am so sorry to hear about your sister. You always have some unpleasant news for us. I'm really sorry to hear that, David. Best of luck to you and your family. Oh, shit, I lost it. Don't you hate it when you lose your place? There we go. Victor Cologne, welcome back as well. And How Wheezy, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back to the chat, and thank you for that $5. You think Vince should say a final goodbye instead of his daughter? Probably couldn't because of his well-being. We're going to talk about that. It is very curious to me that after a few weeks of utter defiance by Vince McMahon. Once the story broke, the public became aware of it, that he was under investigation for misconduct, and we heard some details. He was defiant right in the face of it. Came back at Gorilla on that first SmackDown and said, fuck him. And they had a company-wide meeting, I believe, right before Money in the Bank, where they insisted that Vince McMahon isn't going anywhere, and they tried to sell the idea to the shareholders and stuff that the company cannot run without him at the helm. So they went from that to him completely disappearing, announcing his retirement through a tweet, and not even at SmackDown on Friday, not even in the building. So what the fuck does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means something scared the shit out of him. It means something major is coming down the pike, and it's going to be a nuclear bomb when it hits. Because I can't think of any other reason why Vince would bow out so quickly and so gracefully after being so defiant for several weeks. Like, how do you make that sharp of a turn in that short amount of time? One of his skeletons has probably been uncovered, and it's probably about to hit the airwaves in either a Wall Street Journal article or a Real Sports episode on HBO, or somebody's going to drop the bomb somewhere. So that tells me that he might have gotten out of there because of that. Also, when you retire, you know, it probably is it's going to allow him to remain a shareholder and, you know, the majority shareholder in the company. All he's done is remove himself from the CEO position and creative. He's still a shareholder, and a big one. So I'm wondering that him retiring was a way to protect him still owning the WWE instead of all this coming out and them pushing him out completely. There's also the speculation that maybe after everything dies down, we could see something like a final goodbye. But you would think the Vince that we had previously known up until Friday, if he was going to be forced out, or the board recommends that he resigns or retires, or he's going to be in big trouble, it seems like he'd come out and do some big goodbye or big speech, because that's the way Vince McMahon is. So for him not to even appear and not even be in the building and allow Stephanie to handle that, what the hell, man? So, you know, I'm kind of expecting some sort of major story to drop, adding to everything we already know about Vince. On top of the $12.5 million to the 4 women in the last 16 years, I think there's something else pretty big coming out on Vinnie Mac, because otherwise, why would he just bounce like that, you know? We will see. But in terms of a final goodbye, I can see that happening. Another thing I can also see happening now is Vince McMahon potentially going into the WWE Hall of Fame. He's never shown any interest in being in. I don't think he really wants to be inducted, but that was when he worked there. So now that he's no longer a part of WWE, that might be a way to get him back on TV, or to celebrate Vince in some way, or whatever. Because in wrestling, as we've seen, everything blows over. I mean, look at the behavior of Ric Flair. He's about to be celebrated 1 week from tonight in his last match show, which is a phenomenal looking card, by the way. You know, even Hogan was back at WrestleMania, even though they put Titus with him, you know, as his black human PC shield. They still, after everything Hogan has done, said, and been outed on, they still bring his ass out there. So, you know, with Vince McMahon, if he's stepped away from creative, stepped away from CEO position, what is stopping WWE from honoring him or bringing him out on TV? You know, they've honored a lot worse people, you know, to be honest. So I think when things kind of die down, I think we could see some sort of Vince McMahon presence on TV in the future, whether that be Hall of Fame, whether it be a Vince McMahon appreciation night, or whatever WWE likes to do. I don't think we as fans have seen the very last of Vince McMahon in the flesh on TV. I just don't believe it. And that's some of what we're going to talk about here later on, How Weezy, so stay tuned. Top to 90s here as well. Sonic Plays. Tim Barsh is here. George Morris, appreciate $5 from you. Hey, Greg, how are you doing, and how is your cats? Even with Vince McMahon gone, WWE will never be good again, and storylines on Small Wonder are better. Small Wonder, the little robot girl. George, I don't think anybody here in this chat knows what the fuck Small Wonder is, but I do. Yeah, the storylines right now in WWE are pretty bad. You got to remember that Bruce Pritchard is taking over as head of creative, so things aren't going to get that much better. But as we talked about on Friday, when Vince McMahon announced his retirement, and we talked about how that could affect WWE creatively, one of the things I did mention right off the bat is that at least, even though a lot of the philosophies and the templates that they use for a lot of these segments aren't going to change too much, maybe some of the instability, some of the crazy 11th hour script tear-ups by a maniac wanting to rewrite the whole show, maybe the writing team gets to not have that be a problem anymore, and they can work with a little bit less stress, which might in turn allow them to put a little bit more thought, creativity, and substance into their angles, storylines, promos, and maybe not matches, but promos and angles, and especially stories. And if you have a creative team that's no longer walking around on fucking eggshells, there's a good chance they could do better. So I actually think this is a really good move overall for WWE. I think that they were struggling there. They've left such a sour taste in the mouths of pro wrestling fans that we could see a little bit of a turn here and a major change in WWE as the months and years go by. So we'll see. But George, the cats are great as always. Just the three of us chilling out here tonight. So we're doing good. I think I got most of the shout-outs there. Lil Justin's in the house. So is Power Spin, Roderick, Nolan. Nope, lost you again. Nolan will be voicing Ganondorf. Support him. I don't know what that means in English, but thank you very much, Nolan, for being here. And I appreciate that $5, my friend. I'm hoping Triple H takes over creative. You know, I think Triple H could have input on creative, but I think Triple H is really good in the role that he had. When he was in NXT, when he had that VP of Talent Relations role, he was actively going out trying to sign people, especially a lot of the indie talent. He's responsible for bringing in a lot of guys into the WWE, and everybody really had a good relationship with Triple H. And that's what you like to hear. A lot of wrestlers loved working for him and working under him. And I think that might be a better position for Triple H because he's not really been proven in a creative sense. A little bit in NXT. He did have a lot to do with those storylines and stuff, but I don't think it was his main number one duty. And I think Triple H's could be valuable kind of doing what he's doing. I think anything would, I like Bruce Pritchard, I do, but I don't really like his, him as head of creative because I feel he's just going to be a lot like Vince McMahon. He has that same type of thought process. He's been working alongside Vince since he was in his fucking 20s. He's a goddamn Vince disciple. So I don't really trust Bruce in that role completely, even though I don't hate him or like him, or I don't sling all the hate on him that everybody else seems to. But I'm not really a fan of him in that role. So I think anybody better than him, or anybody other than him, would be better, Triple H included. But at the same time, I think Triple H has major value in the position that he currently has and could help WWE, at least from a talent perspective, moving forward. That's my opinion anyway. Mr. Witchy, JL's in the house as well. Isaac, Ratnick, Skull Vikings, Arthur, King Blah Blah, appreciate $2 from you. Does Vince show up tomorrow on Raw from MSG? I completely forgot Raw's from MSG tomorrow. Totally forgot. It's sold out. Maybe. That's his that's his living room. I mean, Madison Square Garden, I kind of didn't even think about that. My gut tells me no, he's not going to be making an appearance this fast, but it is in the Garden, and it is going to be a packed house. They might do something tomorrow. I'm not sure. But, yeah, that could change. We might be up here tomorrow night after all for a Raw review. I'm not sure yet. I still want to say no, but you never know. We might talk about the MSG Raw tomorrow night, or I might just come up and do a video like that on Tuesday or something. So stay tuned. You might see me before Wednesday based on Raw being at MSG tomorrow, because I had forgotten about that. I think I've got just about everybody. My name is Earl is in the house. We've got Robert Johnson, Abdullah Ahmed. We've got Spaz Phoenix chiming in with $10. Thank you, dude. What's up, Greg, Cat, and Chat? Come on over to me. To the show. We did a preview. We did preview Death Before Dishonor, and we got previews coming for SummerSlam, Rick's last match, Impact, and Emergence shows. Cheers. Right on. Yes, and 20 years of Rey Mysterio in WWE tomorrow that I believe will also be celebrated on Monday Night Raw. So that will be pretty cool. But if they are in MSG, Victor, I think you're right. I think something major probably will happen on the show. It's the go home to SummerSlam. If you just give us a dud, uninspiring shit box of a show 5 days before SummerSlam, come on now. So, yeah, we might actually get a decent show. I got to come up here next week and do SummerSlam predictions as well, which I guess we're going to do that on Friday. So there would be no Winged Eagle next week because SummerSlam is on Saturday. So, yeah, we're probably going to plan on SummerSlam predictions Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure yet. So that's why you need to subscribe to this channel, because probably tonight and tomorrow I'm going to figure all this shit out and let you guys know on the YouTube channel and also over on Twitter. So shoot me a follow at Good Mic Work, and I'll let you guys know my video schedule for this week, because we got to do Dynamite. We might have to talk about Raw tomorrow night at MSG. We definitely have to predict the SummerSlam card, and we got to review SummerSlam next Saturday. And then 1 week from tonight, I'm probably back at work again, so there will not be a watch-along. But it's going to be a big-ass week. Oh, it's going to be raining all week in Nashville. SummerSlam's outdoors, right? That's an outdoor arena in Nashville, correct? I don't think that's inside. Oh, snap. Yeah, that would be a shame, wouldn't it? And don't forget, we almost lost our main event. Brock Lesnar apparently got pissed on SmackDown and had to be talked into coming back. So, yeah, shit's a little bit of a mess right now in WWE, but I also think they could be on the cusp of a few big things as well. So let's start talking about stuff. No, let's not start talking about stuff quite yet. I want to ask you guys to smash that thumbs up button for me. I'm not going to say another word until I get to 1,000 likes. We're at 47. I'm kidding. We're not going to wait for 1,000 likes. But I do want to say hello to the Patreon subscribers and the supporters on the Patreon page, as I do in every week Winged Eagle podcast. I want to thank Zach Palgett and Joseph Hudson, Chris Broski, Divine Ricks, JJ Legg, Nikita Abalakin, Super Fluffy Toaster, Chris Miner, Martin Can, Deshaun Robinson, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dog Skennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Devlin, you just reached a very nice dollar amount. I won't say it out loud, but thank you for all your support, my friend. John Redifer, Claudio Klabadetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Barry MK, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, and Naveed, and Keith Salyers, and Blake Moran. Always, guys, thank you very much for your support over on the Patreon channel. If you would like, or page, if you would like to support over there, you can do so. Link is down in the description, along with links to all my other shit, too. So go over there, take a look, and I will have this audio available for download on the website, and I'll push it out to the podcast feed as well. So everything you watch here will also be available in audio form for those of you who like to do that. Since this is kind of a disorganized podcast, we got to talk about Vince McMahon first. Let's start with him. Now, as we know, Vince McMahon announced his retirement on Friday via Twitter, saying that at 77 years old, it's time for him to retire, thanks to the WWE Universe, and then that was it. And, of course, we came up here and did a video right after that because I had to go to work and it was going to be busy and I wasn't going to be up here yesterday. So we had a very short amount of time to talk about the bombshell news that we knew very little about at the time. And I even said that we're probably going to know more after SmackDown airs and after a couple of days go by and we start reading, some of the news reports about some of the stuff backstage and all that shit. So, as we know, Vince did retire on Friday, and I am still trying to really wrap my head around that. I mean, my whole life has been Vince McMahon. in WWE. He bought the company when I was 5 years old and had it for 40 years and 1 month. And then what did him in was his own jackhammer, which is part of the reason why I have zero sympathy for him. But when it comes to Vince McMahon tributes, there's no problem with that. There's no issue. If you saw on social media, all of the people that worked for Vince throughout the years, a lot of the wrestlers, a lot of stars and former champions, all chimed in to thank Vince McMahon. He's not perfect. We can all acknowledge Vince McMahon's faults while also appreciating what he gave to the wrestling business. It's perfectly fine to do that. And I even mentioned that on Friday, that I have no sympathy for the guy. And I'm actually quite happy to watch some fucking carny maniac find out how the real world works. That's awesome. It's a beautiful thing to see people held accountable for their shitty actions. But that doesn't mean I don't appreciate Vince and what he gave to the business, but it's time for him to go. I said that as soon as the scandal broke. I'm like, he ain't surviving this. I know it seems like on the surface that he survived the federal government and he survived this and he survived that, but if you just read the clear rules and what you can and cannot do as a CEO and how this can affect your company not only publicly in a public image and PR image, but also financially, especially with negotiations and stuff, there's no way he was going to be able to survive this. At least not survive hanging on to his, being the chairman of the company, but holding on to his stock, that's a whole different story. So I had a feeling that this was going to be it, even though it was really, really hard to believe. And no matter how much I felt that in my heart, I wasn't going to believe it until I saw it with my own eyes. And now that Vince is officially gone, they've already had one show without him. And at least for right now, he is out of the WWE, and that's insane. So Vince McMahon deserves credit for what he did, what he built. He will go down in history as the greatest professional wrestling promoter of all time. Nobody is going to come close. Nobody. It's going to take it's going to take 40 years. Tony Khan's going to have to be doing this with AEW for 40 years and take them to heights greater than WWE if he ever wants to say he's the greatest promoter of all time. It's going to be, it's like the Undertaker streak. When are you going to have somebody go 22-0 at WrestleMania ever again? It's going to be really hard to get that done. Really hard. Not saying you can't, but it seems like an impossibility at this point. And same goes for Vince McMahon. So, I don't think people who are necessarily celebrating Vince McMahon leaving WWE, there's a big part of me that is celebrating Vince leaving because, number one, he's being held accountable for his actions, which I believe everybody should, and that's what he deserves. And if he would have just kept his jackhammer in his pants around his employees, he'd be the head of his company right now. But he chose not to. He chose to be a dirty scumbag and do, some inappropriate things that you really shouldn't be doing. A man of your age, position, and role in the company, and he did it anyway, and that's what took him down. So no sympathy for Vince McMahon in that regard whatsoever. Also, we've been complaining about the WWE's creative direction, their booking, their philosophy for so long now, just about the entire career of my YouTube channel here. We've had something kind of negative to say about the creative direction in WWE for well over a decade because you can see things slowly starting to break down. Vince is starting to lose touch. WWE doesn't seem to be the innovators that they once were, and since they have no real direct competition, they were allowed to coast and tread water and not really care much about making another star or making an Austin or a Rock because they have switched gears and philosophies to where they're not going to hitch their company behind one person anymore. They're not going to rely on just Hogan or just Austin to steer the ship. Now they're the Ice Capades. You're going there to see the overall WWE show, not so much one individual. And now that AEW has come along, WWE is seeing and recognizing how much of a mistake that philosophy was because now there isn't somebody that the fans can really go nuts for. Roman Reigns is doing a fantastic job. Brock Lesnar will always be a huge draw. But other than that, there are no Austin, Rocks, Hogans, or anything like that currently out there in the landscape of pro wrestling. And that's largely because WWE's been coasting by so easily, just being able to get away with doing whatever they want. Sometimes the shows literally feel like the entire creative team sat there and was like, let's just do this. Treat it so nonchalantly. Oh, let's just do this. Let's put them two together, and they're not doing nothing. We'll make them a tag team, and then just have them go out there and cut a promo. This person will interrupt, and then we'll make a triple threat. Fuck it, we're done. just so cavalier with people's careers, with people's bodies, and there doesn't seem to really be any true, genuine thought and love being put into the content they're putting on TV. They care a shit ton about 4K and 3D renders and lasers like a motherfucker. Give me a 200-foot wide and 300-foot tall LED screen and Kevin Dunn's fucking happy. But when it comes to actually putting forth decent content, compelling stuff that people want to watch, they suck. And this has been a problem for quite some time. So that's a part of me that is celebrating Vince McMahon's absence and Vince McMahon leaving the WWE, because I feel without him there, there's no way they can't get better. It might not get drastically better when you still have a lot of Vince McMahon yes men walking around that company, especially Bruce. It might not get that much better if Vince is sitting on his couch right now on his phone texting every fucking person back there about what to do and what he thinks they should do. It depends on how much influence he really still truly has. And a lot of people backstage might not want to change things too drastically right away, just out of respect for Vince and what his vision is and what he wants. And if you go in a completely different direction and you 180 that shit 24 hours after he leaves the company, like Louis Dangor thought, he was like, I tuned into SmackDown, and if this isn't what a post-Vince McMahon WWE, if this is what a post-Vince McMahon WWE looks like, I'm not really interested. I'm like, dude, he retired 2 hours ago. You want results right now? Instant gratification. That's what young people want. They want their cake and they want to eat it yesterday. But it doesn't work like that. So I think maybe at first they're not going to do anything drastic to disrespect Vince in any way and show him that, yeah, we really disagreed with basically everything you're doing, so we're going to make a sharp 180 turn and go in completely the other direction. I think it's going to take some time for that to happen. It'll be more of a gradual thing than an overnight thing. You know what I mean? So in that regard, I'm thrilled Vince McMahon is gone, because no longer will this fucking maniac be an obstacle in your way of getting angles over or doing something. Vince McMahon just has the weirdest whims. Sometimes he just decides he doesn't like something anymore, and that's that. Those little things, that's the stuff I talked about last week too. I was like, those little stories that we hear about Vince McMahon flying off the rails over something really fucking stupid and insisting that it's changed, and he's mad and he's stressing everybody the fuck out. The fact that that is gone, the fact that that vibe is gone now, at least with Vince, should provide a lot of the staff there with some relief, I would think, and with a little bit of breathing room to really care. Because like I talked about last week, I'm like, if I'm a writer and I'm sitting down there with a team of guys and we spend 4 hours really thinking hard of hammering out a good show, and we've put together a show that we feel is solid and the audience will like, and Vince McMahon, 30 minutes before the show goes live, in a fit of rage, tears up all of the hard work you just did. Don't you think that would have to be deflating if you're a creative, if you're a writer in WWE, or if you're on the creative team at all? Wouldn't that be so disheartening, so deflating? You know, here I just worked so fucking hard. I know these are good ideas. I know the audience. I know how they'll react. And here this fucking maniac just tears everything up. Why am I going to try? What's my motivation to work hard anymore? Is it if when I work hard, somebody just treats all of my hard work like it's a pile of shit? Not that that still can't happen with Vince there if somebody else is in charge, but I think things like that are going to get better now that that type of personality is not backstage breathing fire on everybody. So that's part of me from a wrestling fan's perspective that I'm happy about, because Vince McMahon being gone should improve that stuff, because I don't have a dog in the stupid war. I'm not happy that Vince McMahon is going because I think that's going to spell doom for WWE and AEW is going to win now. I'm happy Vince McMahon's going because I think that's going to improve WWE. I want them to improve because they suck balls. Raw and SmackDown, I'd rather stick a hot poker up my ass than watch that fucking show half the time. So I'm really excited for better WWE content. I want that. It's not about anything else for me, you know, and that's the thing too, that with Triple H back at the helm, a lot of this talent that was released or left, but really, really, really enjoyed working for Triple H, the Adam Coles and guys like that, when their contracts are up in AEW, Tony Khan better make sure that he's treating these guys well, booking them well, treating them fairly, because when the time comes, they now have an option to go back to where they were before and really, really enjoy. The only reason they left is because the balance of power had switched. In WWE, they made big changes in the company, big fundamental philosophy changes in the company with NXT and their direction and what they're going to do and the people in charge and all of that. And it really kind of left a lot of this talent with no direction, nowhere to go. So many of them were released. Those that weren't didn't resign because they didn't trust it. But now with Vince McMahon gone and Triple H being back, that could change a lot. Now, don't forget about Nick Khan either. You know, Nick Khan has been named co-CEO of WWE along with Stephanie, which I actually think is a really good move because Stephanie can handle more of, you know, the WWE product stuff. Tony Khan can handle financials and shit. And I think that's a good 1-2 punch to have two people in charge. Obviously, that could cause for some conflict, especially if not one of them has any power over the other. And if you do have a stalemate there, how do you decide who's going to get their way? But if you do divide up, you know, somebody like Stephanie who does work with a lot of the talent and the staff in WWE all say good things about Stephanie. I know I give Stephanie a hard time, but everybody in WWE that I've ever heard from or heard an interview from has always had good things to say about Stephanie. Nobody says that she's a tyrant or an asshole or condescending or anything like that. They all say that she works really hard to try to get along with the talent and be there for them and that stuff. So I think Stephanie kind of focusing on that, along with Triple H recruiting the talent, you get a good solid writing team, and then Nick Khan can be in the background of the towers, working out all the finances, maybe deciding who gets cut, shit like that. Nick Khan can now be the scapegoat if anybody gets released, and if WWE still continues to do these mass layoffs every single year, and you have names in there, you're like, why the hell did they release them? I'm curious now is if Triple H has a little bit more of a say, you know, where before it was kind of out of his hands. So that all still remains to be seen. But if Nick Khan is not going to be as cutthroat as he was in terms of the mass slashing of everybody, and Triple H is allowed to bring more talent in that he's interested in, indie talent and all of that, that could spell trouble for Tony Khan, you know, who's been able to benefit from WWE really kind of going off the rails there, changing the greatness that was NXT Black and Gold into horny, splashy paint, releasing so many amazing pieces of talent. You know, who would let Cesaro go and guys like that just willy-nilly, and they're all over there now in AEW doing good things. So WWE, with them kind of changing philosophies there, it was able to send a lot of talent to the competition, and now WWE might be going back to where their philosophies were before, which means it's going to put them back on equal footing again, because prior to Friday, I don't think anybody that was considered a good hand or a good in-ring worker, professional wrestler who's been, you know, busting their ass on the independents for the last 5, 10, 12 years in order to get to WWE, those were the wrestlers WWE was no longer interested in from what we heard. And that wasn't going to be the direction they're going in. But now it is. So maybe now, like I said, both companies are on a little bit more equal footing in terms of attractiveness to indie talent and other stars. You know, where if I'm an indie worker and I've established myself and my name for the last 10 years, I don't want to go to WWE, you know, to be Gregory Water Bottle or Michael Potato Chip or whatever the fuck they're going to name you. And I think that will now change to where both companies are a real legitimate option for a lot of sought-after free agents, and that's going to make the business interesting, and that's going to make some of the contract negotiations and the free agents, you know, the free agent negotiations and recruiting really fun between the two companies. And like I said, Tony Khan might have benefited already as much as he's going to, because with Triple H back in the helm, if he wants to make this thing personally with him and Tony Khan, you know, Triple H has got a great track record with talent. People in AEW love Tony Khan too, but as we'll talk about with Jonathan Gresham, not everybody does. And there has been some problems there, and that's not like everybody loves Triple H either. But if you are an independent talent, let's see, you're a 10-year veteran right now, you've got interest from both companies, who are you more comfortable with working with at this point, Triple H or Tony Khan? It's probably a toss-up at this point. You have a real decision to make. And I think that's awesome for wrestling. So in the long run, Vince McMahon leaving, I think, is really, really, really going to help them, and that's why I'm very happy that he's gone. On the other hand, I can't sit here and pretend there's not a little part of me that's sad. I've talked about this time and time again throughout the years on the podcast. I've said that I am, and I hate to brag, but I am the absolute perfect age to be a wrestling fan. There is no better age to be than 45 years old, because when I was a kid, I was able to watch Hogan win the title from the Iron Sheik, and I was able to be a kid during Hogan's entire 80s run. The rock and wrestling era, the ice cream man used to drive to my house, and I used to walk down the driveway in my bare feet with 3 quarters and give the guy 75 cents for a WWF ice cream bar and eat it right there in my yard in the middle of July. I loved being a kid and watching that stuff, having my big rubbery LJN figures and just being a little kid wrestling fan. It was fun because I was a kid and wrestling was really geared towards kids with that rock and wrestling stuff. Then in the early 90s, now I'm a teenager. Now I'm a little smark. Now I'm a teenage Mark who just appreciates good wrestling, like Brett, Perfect, Sean, guys like that. All that stuff was there for me in the early 90s. Then you fast forward to the Attitude Era. Now I'm 20, 21, 22, 23. I lived through the Attitude Era from ages like 20 to 24. Those were the ages I was during the Attitude Era. That is the perfect age to live through the Attitude Era, you know, because if you're too young, then your parents don't want you watching it. If you're too old, you're too mature. I was in the Goldilocks zone for the Attitude Era. I was the perfect age for that type of stuff. 45-year-old me would probably roll my eyes a lot of shit that I saw in the Attitude Era, but 20-year-old me thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So when you combine all of that, I would not be sitting here right now. I would not be a wrestling fan if it weren't for Vince McMahon. So for that, I truly thank him, because he has provided me with a lifetime of entertainment. His company has provided me with a lifetime of memories, and wrestling is an enormous part of my life. And I've always said that, you know, just being a wrestling fan and being this far into it like a lot of us are, it's like knowing a secret that nobody else knows, you know? And I know you can probably look at a lot of hobbies like that, but wrestling has always felt that way to me, you know, because, you know, unfortunately now you wouldn't know it now, but, you know, when you look at wrestling Twitter and stuff and everybody's just fucking at each other's throats and fighting all the time. But I'm old enough to remember when I was a kid, I would look in the back of magazines and you would have pen pals and you would write a pen pal. I had a kid that I wrote back and forth to, you know, just talked about our favorite wrestlers and shit, just random stuff, just little Mark stuff, you know, just innocent stuff, not arguing with who we think's better and which company we want to win and wasting our time complaining about wrestling journalists and Tony Khan and just little fucking whiny ass bitches all over Twitter. It's all you see, you know, where back in the day, it just seemed like a little bit more fun. So, you know, Vince McMahon has given me, you know, somebody who's about to be 45 in 2 months, an endless supply of just amazing entertainment. And like I said the other day, Vince McMahon has pissed away a lot of opportunities too. I can't count how many times the dude has had a gold mine dropped in his lap and he's just pissed it away, or, you know, refused to push someone who's getting over on their own because he didn't approve that person getting over, so then fuck it. There's been so many times where Vince McMahon has made a boneheaded mistake, terrible business decision, starting a football company, starting a bodybuilding company, pushing literally the wrong people, the opposite of who you should be pushing, and probably could have been even more successful than he was if he just wasn't so set in his ways. But still, despite all of Vince's failures, he's had a lot of successes. And he's had a lot of that success largely in part to the people that worked for him and the superstars that, you know, really, really helped make me a fan. And like I said, Vince McMahon is one of those superstars. Austin was awesome. Stone Cold Steve Austin was going to be the greatest character of all time regardless, but maybe not quite as great had he not had Vince to work with. Vince McMahon really put them over the hump. Vince and Austin together ended WCW. I firmly believe that. I think if anybody else would have been in that role against Austin, yeah, it would have been great. Austin would have been over, getting huge pops, cutting great promos, drinking beer, middle fingers, winning WWE titles and all that. But there was something just a more real and genuine and natural and something that people could relate to about that Vince angle, because Vince was his boss and Vince was so good at being himself. The best wrestling characters are the ones where you're kind of yourself, just with the volume up a bit. And that's exactly what Vince was. And we're seeing that now. All these stories coming out about Vince McMahon and all this inappropriate behavior and the hush money and the blowjobs and the sex and all that. I'm like, that's exactly who he was on TV. Fucking pervert. So it's incredible to me. It's still surreal that he is gone. But for the good of WWE, for the good of pro wrestling, it is absolutely the right call. WWE has needed, wrestling has needed Vince McMahon's absence for a while. Wrestling has not needed Vince McMahon's input in quite some time. And now that he's finally out and he got taken down by his own jackhammer and he is no longer in charge of every single aspect of WWE creatively, now they might have a chance to spread their wings a little bit and grow. Hell, just last night or just last Friday on SmackDown, Xavier Woods mentioned Ring of Honor and New Japan, didn't he? Somebody even said Kenny Omega's name was mentioned on SmackDown, which blew my mind. So we might see a little teeny tiny changes like that right off the bat. And if Vince's absence is going to lead to WWE, Triple H, Stephanie, whoever, being more open to working with other promotions, we might get the biggest fucking forbidden door of all time. You know, I mean, we actually, it's not, I would have never expected to even talk about, we can talk about this in a fantasy sense, but I wouldn't talk about it in a reality sense for WWE and AEW to ever work together in any way. But I would not rule that out. I still don't think it's really that possible, but I think Triple H would be way more open to something like that than Vince ever would. Stephanie, not so sure. But that's one part that I'm trying to look at this. I'm trying to silver lining this whole thing too with Vince, because you got to look at, you know, what this could potentially mean. We really could see some serious positive changes in the future due to this. And that's what I'm hoping to see. And I'm hoping we get that. Like I said, it ain't going to be overnight, but gradually we could see these things get better as we go. Like I said, lots of wrestlers sharing their tributes to Vince McMahon. And one interesting tweet I should mention. We got to talk about Tony Khan. Tony Khan, several hours after Vince McMahon announced this, tweeted out basically an advertisement for Rampage, which I did not watch on Friday. I didn't get a chance to see it. But he included a little dig in there where he said he is now the longest tenured CEO in wrestling. And oh my God, were the panties ruffled in this one. I was laughing so hard at the responses because I knew with Tony Khan tweeting that out, he was going to rile up so many people. And so many people, you're a sad little man and so pathetic and so unprofessional. Vince McMahon is the guy we're talking about here. Vince McMahon, Mr. Banging employees and paying them to shut up. This is a guy that on the night of the WCW and WWE buyout simulcast fired 2 people on cable TV, on national TV in front of the world. This is a guy that when the Denver Nuggets made the playoffs and Raw had to get bumped out of Denver, he acted like a complete buffoon over the Stan Kroenke situation. If you don't remember that from back in 2010 or 11 or whenever that was, go read up on that story and read and watch some of Vince McMahon's interviews around that time and see for yourself. Because I'll tell you this right now, Vince McMahon's handling of that situation, of the Denver Stan Kroenke situation, is 100 times worse than anything Tony Khan will ever do, has ever done, or will ever say in the future. Not even close. I don't understand how hugging a newly signed wrestler or tweeting out a joke is unforgivable, but fucking your employees and paying them to shut up is just peachy. Come on. Was the tweet in bad taste? Okay, I'll put it like this. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm not tweeting that. So I will admit that. I admit that Tony Khan, I was like, did you really have to say that? You know, but it really wasn't the worst thing in the world either. It's not like he was super disrespectful. He wasn't calling names or profanities or being, have any really serious malice at all. He's just making a joke. I don't think his joke is any different than Triple H calling AEW a pissant company to Billy Gunn's face, or telling him that they'll buy the company whenever they want, and then they wonder why Cody smashes a fucking Triple H throne. You know, so little digs back and forth are really not that big of a deal. If I'm Tony Khan and I'm the CEO of AEW and I'm Vince's #1 direct competitor, I'm probably cooling it with that. Because Tony Khan has said himself, it's well documented what a big wrestling fan he is, and how much, like I just talked about, the WWE supplied me with so many years of entertainment. They did the same thing for him. So you would think that Tony would have the same attitude that I do, or maybe many of us do, where we are happy that Vince is gone, but we still have to acknowledge what the man gave and provided to the wrestling business. And I thought Tony Khan might be a little more tactful than that. So even though I didn't agree totally per se with what Tony Khan tweeted, to watch people jump off of buildings over this really, really illustrates and exposes their clear, obvious bias towards this company. It's so easy to recognize. I took, it doesn't take that much of a psychology, that many psychology classes in college to kind of understand this. And this is the way fans are. And they were just waiting for that, jumping all up his ass, freaking stark raving, head exploding mad about that tweet, but yet not mad that Vince McMahon shows his jackhammer to anybody who wants to see it. That's fine. But God forbid, don't tweet out a joke. And don't hug a newly signed wrestler. Don't show passion. Don't act goofy in a media scrum. These are what all of these people consider to be unforgivable behavioral issues in a CEO. Yet Vince McMahon doing everything is completely brushed off. I've said it before. Wrestling Twitter is very much like Fox News. Obama wore a tanned suit, and they spoke about it for like 6 days. Trump incites an insurrection and they won't even carry the fucking hearings. Same thing. It's, they just hear what they want to hear and that's it. And they get really, really, really mad. And I think wrestling fans need to remember at the end of the day that what we're talking about here is pro wrestling. There is nothing, and I mean nothing in pro wrestling that should make you head exploding mad. Nothing. And if Tony Khan tweeting a joke about Vince McMahon gets you so riled up that you're fucking dumping antidepressants down your fucking mouth just to calm yourself down, maybe the pills aren't enough. We're talking voltage here. Maybe we need to plug your ass into something, because that's a little bit crazy. And there's really no reason to get that mad over something like this. Especially all the tweets that I see and all the anger dished out at Tony Khan. Not one of these people said anything bad about Vince McMahon. Not one person said Vince was gross. He needs to be held accountable. Vince got what he deserved. No, that's all fine. Vince got screwed. He was done wrong. And now Tony Khan, blah, blah, blah. It's just, people are so fucking transparent. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. It's so fucking easy to tell where their head's at, because it's just out there. You can just tell, they basically say it in their own words when they will get so pissed about a joke, but brush off something really serious. A CEO, a billionaire, acting like a fucking child, seems to be fine with them, but a joke, end of the world. And that's why I think fans just need to cool it. Stop worrying so much about which side you're on, man. You're a pro wrestling fan. We should enjoy shows from both companies. It should not matter whose fucking letters are on the goddamn turnbuckle pads. It should not matter to you. But it matters to a lot of people. So Tony Khan, I actually will fully admit that I did not agree with his choice of words there. I thought he should have been a little bit more respectful. And maybe not respectful, because Vince McMahon's not respectful, so why should Tony be? But maybe, just show a little bit more restraint, because, and I think that's stuff too in the long term that Tony Khan will learn from. And he's probably, 2 or 3 years from now going to look back at a tweet and say, wow, I cannot believe I said that. So I do think people mature, they grow, they get better as they go. And Tony Khan's only been a promoter for less than 3 years. He's going to make some mistakes and hopefully learn from them. So I think that, stuff like this is something that we'll see become less and less of a factor with Tony Khan as the years go on. But I really don't see, I laugh how everybody thinks he's on coke. Then you've never done coke. I'm sorry. Tony Khan being a little bit energetic, maybe a little bit goofy and passionate in a media scrum, does not automatically mean cocaine. And I've seen enough people on cocaine to know who is and who isn't. And Tony Khan's not really shown me the cocaine vibes like everybody says. So people just like to say these things. And I think people who think that he's on coke don't know what coke's about. So I think the hate on him was a little bit ridiculous over the tweet, but Tony Khan also has to know that. And Tony Khan needs to take responsibility for that himself, because he should know by now, based on how active he is on Twitter, how fucking crazy the goddamn wrestling audience is. And he should know, and he probably did know, that tweeting out a joke like this is going to get him all sorts of hate. Dude clearly doesn't care. Just sitting there sipping his smart tears, I guess. He doesn't give a shit. But you would think that you tweet something like that out, you're going to get a little bit of hate and backlash from the fans, which he did. Now, let's talk about SmackDown on Friday as well. I know I got Super Chats to answer and all that. We'll get to that in a minute. But SmackDown on Friday, like I said, was opened by Stephanie McMahon, who came out and led the fans in a thank you Vince chant. And there was also the big rumor that day that Brock Lesnar had left and said something. Brian Alvarez reported that Brock Lesnar left SmackDown. The reports coming in were that he said some sort of a derivative of, if he's gone, I'm gone, and left pissed off. SmackDown then aired. By the time we got to the end of SmackDown, Brock Lesnar actually showed up. So much like the Tony Khan situation, wrestling fans, these weirdos, decide to direct their head-exploding ass balls anger in the strangest directions, attacking Brian Alvarez, Sean Ross Sapp, everybody they can. You guys were wrong. You were wrong. Brock was there. Stupid journalists. So transparent. That's not what happened. Brock Lesnar legitimately did leave. He was advertised for the show, and they pulled him off of all the advertisers. They didn't work the sheets. Why would WWE do that? Of all days, they got some major shit going down in the company right now. The guy that has been at the helm of the company for the past 4 decades has just retired 2 hours ago, and your priority is going to be work the sheets? This is what the fans think, because they have such a raging, mega hard, huge erection for getting mad at the Sean Ross Sapps and the Alvarezes and the Meltzers and shit that they go crazy. Where does this anger come from? Who didn't hug them? They not get invited to parties or something? Did you not have friends? Like, what the fuck? What's with the anger? And so everybody's freaking out, attacking everybody. You got it wrong. I'm like, they didn't get it wrong. Brock left legitimately mad. This has been confirmed. Hell, WWE even confirmed this twice. Number one, they mentioned it on TV. Oh, the fan was talked about that Brock left the building, and also they pulled him last minute from all the advertisements and all of the shit that they had him advertised for on the website and stuff. He was pulled off of that. He left the building. But what happened was Vince McMahon probably called him. Don't leave, Brock. Please don't do that. I worked for 40 years to build this company. If you walk out and you screw over my main event of my second biggest pay-per-view of the year, you slap me in the face, you slap everybody in the company in the face, and you completely, you can harm what I've worked so hard to create. And I think Brock needed that. You know, Brock needed to be calmed down. They said that he did leave and came back in a much better mood, and things were able to get smoothed over. They were able to talk Brock back in. It's not like this is shit we haven't heard from Brock before. We know Brock is a hothead. We know he's lost his temper before and had issues with WWE and is not afraid, because Brock's bulletproof, quite frankly. Brock's not afraid to tell anybody his issues. He's not going to be fired. You know, he can literally do whatever he wants, aside from maybe, F5ing Stephanie for real. Other than that, he's probably going to be safe in his job. So why is it so hard for fans to believe that he got pissed, left, and it might have taken a little phone call from Vinnie Mac to get him back on track? I believe fully that's what happened, because that is what happened. It's been corroborated and reported and confirmed by several people, and all of the fans with this stick up their ass about the wrestling journalists for some reason. They care about journalistic integrity. Motherfuckers haven't come within a zip code of a journalism class in their lives, all of a sudden are caring about that stuff. Fuck off. You just don't like certain people who do it, so you use that as an excuse. Any idiot with 2 eyes can see that's the case, because that is what the case is. I just laugh every time I'm on Twitter. I'm like, these people are so fucking easy to figure out. They're so one-dimensional, without even meeting them in person, you know exactly what type of personality they have. They just don't think, What would you do with a brain if you had one? Isn't that what Dorothy says? So anyway, the fans lost their shit over the story that Brock left, and then he showed up. See, the journalists are stupid. Ay. What a weekend. So he comes back, and everything is hunky-dory now with Brock. But that was a scary situation, I'm sure, for Brock to leave. He's all pissed. If Vince isn't going to be here, then I'm not going to be here. And maybe Vince had to call him and say, look, I'm just not the CEO anymore. I'm just not head of creative. I still own the fucking company. So please come back. Don't do this to me. You know, Brock himself has said in interviews that Vince was like a father figure to him. And so maybe his dad needed to call him and set him straight. And I think that's exactly what happened. And I don't think that's a tough story to believe. It's extremely plausible that this happened. Extremely. If there was doubt or speculation, I would doubt and speculate on it. But it doesn't appear to be to me. I think if you're doubting or speculating it, it's just because you want it to not be true. Not because it isn't. So that's just the way it is. So Brock is back. Everything's a go, so to speak, for SummerSlam. I really don't think now, with Brock walking out on Friday, there's any chance they're going to put the belt on him on SummerSlam, because if he has another meltdown, he might leave with the championship, and you don't want that. So Brock is probably just going to show up at SummerSlam to lose to Roman again. And right now would not be a time, in my mind, to be slapping the belts on Theory either. With the transition and everything going on right now, you should probably just keep your champion, your go-to guy, Roman, at the top of things for right now. But like I said about Vince McMahon, he still remains his shareholder voting control, despite stepping down as CEO and head of creative. He owns the bulk of the shareholding voting power, basically meaning that he will remain as the most powerful man in the company. So he still can have an influence. He still can consult. He still can talk to people on creative, talk to Stephanie, talk to whoever, and have some sort of an influence on the product, because I don't think Vince is going to be able to quietly retire. We joked about that on Friday. What the hell is this guy going to do? Just sit at home? Just sit at his pool, drinking a fucking pina colada and watching reruns of MASH? I don't know what he's going to do. He doesn't do being off. He doesn't do vacation. He doesn't sit down. This dude's worked 15, 20-hour days for like 40 years straight. You don't just turn that off overnight. So he's still going to be, I think, doing things probably from home and having his fingers in the pie a lot in terms of WWE, just not so visible. That's my guess. And like I said, can he return someday? Could he come back someday when things die down? Resume his role? I don't know. I doubt it, but maybe he could. Like I said, possibly a WWE Hall of Fame induction could be coming up for him in a couple of years. Also, some sort of appearance. I don't know how we cannot expect Vince to not be paraded around on TV at some point in the future. I would find it hard to believe that Vince will never enter a WWE ring again. I know he'll never enter one to compete, which is good. He ended things with that just beautiful-looking stunner cell at WrestleMania. But in terms of him standing in his own ring, standing in a WWE ring, I cannot fathom him never doing that again. I still believe, even though he's gone and even though he's resigned and retired, that he will get back in a WWE ring in some capacity at some point in the future, whether it's a Vince Appreciation Night, Hall of Fame, or if they just say, to spark a rating, Vince McMahon is going to appear. And he'll probably come out and say, well, so what have I been up to? Well, I'm still the shareholder. I'm still the CEO, so I've got duties there, and I just want to say I love all you guys or something. I can completely see that happening, and I believe it will. But at least for right now, he's not a part of that, and I think we could see some changes for the positive coming in the next few weeks, months, and even years, provided he stays away completely. But, it's not wrong of people to speculate that maybe he could be back, because, this might be just something he's got to do to stop the investigations, to stop the bleeding, or like I said earlier, and what a lot of us have a feeling about, is for him to make such a drastic change from being defiant and saying fuck him to retiring and not even showing up. Some skeleton in his closet must have been uncovered and is about to be revealed to the world. That's what I believe is the case here, because otherwise, how do you explain this, Crazy situation, man. I'm glad we're all going through this together. We're all watching Vince McMahon leave WWE together. And like I said, in the long run, that's why if I'm Tony Khan, another thing I'm thinking about is karma. Tweeting out something like that, that could have a karma effect on you in the future. And like I said earlier, Triple H being back at the helm of VP of Talent Relations, that could really be a problem for Tony Khan when it comes to negotiating and luring and attracting and recruiting talent, especially well-known established indie talent that's already out there, especially people currently under contract to Tony with their contracts coming up. They looked at their last 2 years they were there. Well, I didn't do much. I've already worked with Triple H before. He likes me. I guess I'll go back over there. So Tony Khan better be careful, because now he could have a lot more to worry about in terms of, contract negotiations and shit like that. So It's still the booking. That's still the number one problem in WWE. That still has to get better if you want to retain talent. Unless you have talent there that's just fine making money and doing a bunch of dumb shit every week, there's plenty of people that are fine with that spot. But if you have people that want to grow and succeed and excel in wrestling, it's not just automatically, oh, AEW is going to be the better option for me now, where maybe a few months ago that was the case. Might not be the case now. I really think that Triple H and Tony Khan are going to be on pretty equal footing in terms of attracting talent. And when contracts come up, that's going to make shit really interesting. Really interesting. So that's why it's all about booking. Tony better make sure that everybody that he wants to retain and keep as talent, he better treat them well from a creative standpoint so they don't jump. And WWE has got to do the same thing. No longer can WWE just phone shit in. Otherwise, talent is going to bounce. We've seen that. So this, like I said, in the long run, I have some sense of excitement in me because I really think there's a chance we could see, some exciting times coming up in wrestling due to this news. So we will have to see. Somebody brought up a good point about Cody Rhodes too. When Cody comes back, is his push going to remain intact? This really seems to be like a Vince project. Luckily, Cody is the son of the American Dream, and Triple H loves Dusty. And I think Triple H's kind of spiteful days are behind him. I cannot imagine Triple H squashing the push of a guy that the company is investing millions in because he hits your fake throne on an AEW pay-per-view. I just don't see Triple H to be that type of guy, not at his age, not after having heart surgery and a defibrillator and where he is in his life to be petty like that. That's just not something that I believe Triple H would do. So I don't think it's really going to affect Cody. Hopefully when Cody comes back from his injury, everything will just get picked back up with him, but you never know. Vince is not in charge. What is it going to mean for Austin Theory? He was clearly a Vince project as well. He's the current Money in the Bank briefcase holder. Was that all of Vince, or were there people behind Vince that also see a lot in Theory? So we'll see, what happens to Theory with the Money in the Bank, what happens to Cody when he comes back. And by the time Cody comes back, like I said earlier, I said this a couple weeks ago, that Cody really got lucky by getting injured because now he gets to spend all the turmoil period being out of the spotlight, being away from it. And by the time he comes back around the Royal Rumble or next year or whatever, things should have settled a bit. Vince is either going to be gone or he's not. Now that he's gone, now that we know who's in charge of what, things can start to run. And now, you got 4 months to get things going by the time Cody comes back. And once he does come back, hopefully things will be pretty smoothed out and evened out behind the scenes. And maybe a lot less of that transition period will be going on. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. That's for sure. So anyway, that's kind of all I've got on the Vince stuff. I just wanted to talk about it, get some of that out, discuss the future and, whether or not we're going to see a new WWE and whether or not Vince is truly, really going to stay away, because I ain't totally convinced yet. But before we get into Death Before Dishonor, and like I said, it's going to be a pretty quick review because I did watch this pretty fast last night. I had to watch it on a speed-up mode just so I can try to get all the matches in and get as much of it in as possible. So it's going to be a pretty basic review of the show, but I definitely have opinions of it. But I know I've been missing a lot of comments and super chats in here, so I'm going to knock these out first, and then we will get into Death Before Dishonor. Also, I would appreciate the thumbs up, smashes for me very much if you don't mind. And yeah, we will be talking about Gresham in just 1 minute. Okay, I got to find these super chats because I know they're in here. Okay, there we go. Support him. I got you already, King Blah. I got you. Spaz, I got you. Spaz is back with 20 more bucks. That's my next one. Thank you, dude, for the 20. I don't get people complaining that Vince will still be in the ears of Triple H and Steph. It's not like leaders of other companies don't look at the previous position holders for advice. Right. And I'm sure that is going to be the case. It's a matter of Vince McMahon giving this advice unsolicitedly, or giving this advice out unsolicited, or if Stephanie, Triple H, Bruce seeks this advice. It's a big difference. If I'm Bruce and, hey boss, how would you handle this or whatever? How should I do this? Any advice on how to work this out? And Vince will say, here's how I used to do it. That's the type of advice I would want and expect Vince to send. What I don't want Vince doing is sitting on his couch watching SmackDown, getting pissed at everything he's seeing and texting everybody saying, don't fucking do that. Stop doing that. I'm like, well, Vince, you ain't the head of creative anymore, so I'm going to do what I want. But yeah, Vince is going to be in contact with these people, no question, because at the end of the day, like we said, he is the majority shareholder and stockholder, and even if Vince is right or wrong, he's going to believe he's right. So if he's mad about something that he's seeing, he's only mad about it because he feels it's better for the company if it goes a different way. Even if Vince is completely fucking stupid and wrong, it's the way he feels. So you're right, Spaz. He will definitely be speaking to them a lot. Zelius Ward with a very generous $20. Thank you for that $19.99, my friend. Yo, Greg, looking good, my man. Some of my favorite wrestling since the Attitude Era was NXT when Triple H was running it. You think WWE will give Triple H a chance to unleash that magic for the main roster? I hope so. I really, really hope so. As a matter of fact, I was just finished up last night, Sami Zayn on Broken Skull Sessions. If you haven't watched that on Peacock, check it out. Really great interview. Sami's my favorite fucking wrestler. He really is. I fucking love him. And it was really fun to watch him in that environment. I'm so glad they had him on as a guest, and it was good stuff. And when you see someone like him, and when he talks about his days in NXT and the glory days there and Triple H and, you know, how things were changing, I would love if Triple H could take a little bit of that NXT magic and try to implement it into the main roster because, you know, that was what was great about NXT. You know, you liked the characters better. You know, they had more things to do. What they did meant more, and it wasn't so cookie cutter, you know, and redundant the way it was on the main roster. You actually listened to the promos and were excited to see these matches, and nothing felt phoned in, rushed, poorly thought out. Nothing felt that way. It all felt like it was really well done, and thought was going into the characters, the products, the presentation, you know, the matches, the angles and stuff like that. And I would love for that to creep its way into the main roster. That would be a big help for Raw and SmackDown and might help make both shows watchable, which would also be nice. AJ Marshall, appreciate $5 from you. Triple H back in talent relations. You expect Johnny Gargano to come back to WWE? Maybe. We talked about Johnny Gargano yesterday, or I'm sorry, on Friday. He has not landed anywhere yet. And now that Triple H is back, I could totally see somebody like Gargano, or like I said earlier, maybe some former NXT talent currently in AEW, when their contract runs up, maybe they bounce back over to the Fed. All these things are a definite possibility. I am really sorry I'm missing all these comments, but I just want to make sure I get these super chats out, and that should be it on the super chats. And all right, cool. I'm going to be back in 10 seconds, and we're going to start talking about Death Before Dishonor. 1 sec. All right. Sorry about that. Just had to go take care of something over there with the cats. So we are back. So wow. A lot of Vince McMahon stuff. Like I said, that was all this podcast was going to be because I didn't have like a ton of notes. So I was like, well, if I ramble about Vince for an hour, that might make for a suitable podcast. And then if I talk about Death Before Dishonor, that'll be it for us today. So let's get into last night's Ring of Honor pay-per-view. First pay-per-view under the Tony Khan and AEW banner. One of the things I noticed right off the bat last night on the show that it did look like an AEW show, except just with Ring of Honor shit there, you know, with the guardrails and stuff like that. And I really do appreciate AEW having different looking dynamites, naming them different things, changing up how the set looks every now and then. And I really hope that Ring of Honor can be a different like looking product, because one of the problems with WWE, as we saw, once they bought WCW, they just did away with it, and then they tried to make the brand split between Raw and SmackDown, but it was the same show. One was colored red, one was colored blue. Other than that, it's the same show. Same thing with ECW when they decided to bring ECW back. It took just a couple of weeks, and it was just an ECW logo on a WWE show. So I knew you have to do that for cost reasons because it makes everything cheaper to use a lot of the same shit, but I really hope that Ring of Honor can have a little bit different of a vibe than AEW. However, the polish that it now has, because the old Ring of Honor, they had bad lighting, they were in small venues. This was, even though it wasn't a huge crowd last night, I believe they were in Lowell, Mass, about 3,000 people. It was still way higher than what Ring of Honor usually draws. So it already had a much more polished, professional look to it, which is good. I just think it needs to be a little bit separate from AEW. Not the same exact camera angles, the same type of sets and all that, but they probably will use a lot of the same crew. I don't know how that all works, but I would try to make those two brands a little bit different if at all possible. Would be my advice. In terms of the crowd, I don't think the crowd was all that hot on TV from what I could tell. Now, people who were in the building were saying the crowd was nuts for everything, but they were quiet at times, really quiet at times. But they always came to life during the big spots. They always came to life during the near falls or the table bumps or whatever. But overall, they were really quiet. I remember specifically in the Serena Deeb Mercedes Martinez match, you could have heard a pin drop in there. So the atmosphere wasn't as energetic, but it was also a smaller crowd. It was only 3,000 people there. It opened up with the Ring of Honor Championship match, which is kind of surprising. It is Claudio Castagnoli challenging Jonathan Gresham for the Ring of Honor World title. This match, when it was announced, was pretty obvious, at least to me, that they were going to probably belt up Claudio here. I know Gresham had just recently signed a few months ago with Tony Khan, AEW, Ring of Honor, whatever you want to call it. And, he's a great wrestler. Doesn't have a whole lot of size, but he's a great wrestler with a million holds. There's a lot of guys that can do what he does, but he is really unique and really credible, and I've always liked Gresham, but I did not think he was going to beat Claudio here. I felt like, Claudio with his previous Ring of Honor history, never winning the Ring of Honor title, being a big name taken from WWE that had a lot of experience there and did win championships and is recognizable and many fans believe is world championship material. What better way to bring him over to the other side than to send him back where he started to win the world title there, now that it's owned by a much bigger umbrella? I saw no real problem with that decision. It's a decision I would have made. But it was weird that this match opened the show. But if you notice on Dynamite, it's kind of the same way. It feels like the opening match is always really hot on Dynamite, and so was the main event. So as long as you're in one of those two spots, in Tony Khan's universe, those are good spots to be in. So I wasn't like freaking out that the title was on first. We see that done a lot in WWE as well, but it was head scratching. So they go on to have about a 9-minute match, and it was a good match. Both guys were showcased well. But in the end, and Regal was out there too, by the way. Regal sat in on commentary for this. He would be out later on during Yuta and Garcia as well. But just to see Regal, just there in the Ring of Honor environment is so awesome. And he's so fucking valuable to a company like that. And for him to be on commentary and just speak is awesome to hear. He was doing that too in the Pure match when he was kind of informing the audience of what the wrestlers are doing, why this move hurts, what that does, how, things that the regular announcers aren't going to know most of the time because they haven't been in the ring. Hearing him there to kind of explain that, I can listen to Regal talk all day. So that made me happy to see him there. Claudio ended up hitting Jonathan Gresham with the Ricola for the win in kind of a quick and what I would say slightly flat finish. I was really surprised it kind of ended that quickly and abruptly, but the crowd was still very happy to see that. I was still happy to see that. I fucking love Claudio. His music played, immediate confetti, he's celebrating, and it was awesome. Well-deserved. I'm so happy that he's found instant success upon leaving WWE because he was so criminally underused there. And, Claudio's such a respectful guy. This isn't a guy that got boo-boo face or anything like that. He just quietly left. Didn't make a big stink about it. Didn't announce his release. Didn't type up 4 paragraphs on his phone notepad and post them to Twitter, about his thoughts on everything. He just did his business and did what he wanted to do. And he left, went over here, and now he's been gifted with a Ring of Honor world title, finally winning a world championship after all this time. It is way overdue for Claudio, and I'm just elated for him. Now in the Bloodline, you've got the Bloodline. Listen to me. The Blackpool Combat Club, we have Claudio as the Ring of Honor champion. You got Moxley as the interim AEW champion, and Wheeler Yuta retained his Pure title as well last night. So Blackpool Combat Club's looking pretty good. Now, back to the match. The match was a good match, but like I said, I think it could have been a little bit better. it could have gone, I'd say 3 to 5 more minutes easily, and it, was cut a little bit short. And now we might know why. Just a few hours ago, I was still at work this morning when I read this, but apparently Jonathan Gresham at Death Before Dishonor requested his release, or has requested his release from AEW and Ring of Honor. And last night at the pay-per-view apparently had some sort of a heated discussion with Tony Khan where he apparently cussed him out. The meeting took place prior to the match, and it was heated to where a lot of the talent could overhear what was being said, and even the security guards could even hear it. So there was some yelling and screaming. Jonathan Gresham not happy about something, not exactly sure what, probably his booking. I think Gresham also, I like Gresham, I do, so I don't mean this in any disrespect, but I think he feels like he's a bigger star than he really is. I have no issue with his size. Everybody, picks on his size and how short he is and stuff, and I believe wrestling really is for everybody, and none of that stuff is really a factor anymore. In 1980, it might be hard if you're a male wrestler to be as tall as Layla Hirsch, but not anymore. Same thing with Adam Cole. He doesn't look like fucking Batista. Who cares? He's one of the best workers and talkers in the entire business. And I don't give a fuck what he looks like. Nobody cared what Foley looked like, so I don't know why any of this matters, So you hear a lot of that about him, but he's really strong, and he's in really good shape, and he's a fucking hell of a wrestler. But, sorry, Claudio's a bigger star. Ring of Honor is about to relaunch, having one of their own come back after big years with the Federation and be your champion going forward when you're on the verge of this relaunch, to me seems like a perfectly logical decision to make. Gresham obviously doesn't feel that way, and I don't know what, like I said, the details of what's going on with his issue with Tony Khan. He could be very, very justified for all I know. I just don't know enough about it. But if it's something where he doesn't agree with the booking, doesn't believe he should lose the title, believes that he should be the face over Ring of Honor, over someone like Claudio, I don't know if I agree with that. So it just kind of depends on what we learn about this moving forward, what we learn about his beef and what his issues are. And once I see all of that, maybe I'll agree with him a little bit more. But at least on the surface, him getting mad and actually wanting out is pretty shocking to me, but I think maybe he had bigger ideas for Ring of Honor, his vision of Ring of Honor, and his vision as being Ring of Honor champion. Maybe he thought, Tony had more plans for him, and once Claudio came in, they immediately pivoted to him, and maybe that's offended him. I don't know. But whatever the case is, he's at least asked for his release. I have not seen anything about him being granted his release, at least before going live here. I did not. So if anything's changed on that, you guys are welcome to let me know, but does not believe he has been granted that release yet. So we will see. That Pure match was crazy. Wheeler Yuta taking on or defending his Ring of Honor Pure Championship against Daniel Garcia was an interesting one because the Pure rules are crazy. They've got, you can't have more than 3 rope breaks. You got a 20 count when you're on the outside. There's no closed fists. And if you do use a closed fist, you get a warning on the first one and you're flat out DQ'd on the second one. Very specific rules. A perfect match to have William Regal sit in on commentary for as he was explaining a lot of these moves. Really fun match. Went about twice the amount of time that Claudio and Gresham did, and Wheeler Yuta won with a really nice kind of roll-up pinning combination in a very, very good technical match. Up to this point, this was the best match on the show for sure. It was better than the first one. Unfortunately here, no code of honor, no handshake at the end. It should be noted too, Gresham and Claudio did exchange handshakes, and Gresham congratulated him, and they did have the code of honor in that match, but not here with Yuta and Garcia. Garcia just flipped off Wheeler Yuta and walked away, and I think he even had something to do backstage. I saw some little clip of Garcia getting in Yuta's face backstage or something like that. So they're continuing that. Really, really good match, and it's one of my first real looks at a ROH Pure match. I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun, different. I like that they have that different set of rules. It's kind of like the X Division, but not really. X Division had different rules too, but totally different style of match. This was really fun. I like it, and it's a little something different for wrestling. I like it. I got to brush up on my Ring of Honor knowledge. Roosh taking on his brother, Dragon Lee, was also a really good match. Roosh took advantage of his brother's, remorse or maybe concern for his brother and got the win there. I thought that was really good. Serena Deeb, and I did not see any of the tag match with Dalton Castle. I missed that whole thing, so I apologize for not talking about it, but I never watched that match because I didn't have time. I only had time to watch the big ones. I think Serena Deeb and Mercedes Martinez had a great match last night. I was a little bit surprised they didn't do a title change. I thought they would, but Mercedes Martinez won with her sleeper submission thing to tap out Deeb to retain the title in a really good match, and the crowd was really, really quiet for this. They picked up a little bit near the end, but for the most part, they were quiet, like really, really quiet. And Mercedes Martinez retains the Ring of Honor women's title. After that, we had Samoa Joe defending the Ring of Honor TV title against Jay Lethal. Now, Jay Lethal, of course, is going to be involved in Ric Flair's last match next Sunday. I kind of thought he would actually take the TV title here, but he did not. Good match. Samoa Joe won with the Coquina Clutch. By the way, before all of these matches, excellent video packages and stuff. You can really see the improvement in the production and everything, and how, Ring of Honor really has a good chance to, maybe fill that void that NXT Black and Gold left. I really do. It might be a little bit harder now with Vince gone and Triple H back at the helm of talent relations in WWE. But prior to Friday, I was really looking forward to Ring of Honor's relaunch and what it could mean to wrestling. And that showed last night, on the pay-per-view. It was definitely worth the money, and it was cool to, see how they've built up these issues and these storylines, and just fun for wrestling fans. Coquina Clutch retains the title there for Joe as he defeats Jay Lethal. And next week for Ric Flair's last match will be really interesting. I'm not sure when we'll get a chance to talk about that, because I'm almost certain I'll be working on Sunday. Actually, I know I am working on Sunday, and I will be missing Ric Flair's whole thing, but I'll figure out some way to see it and talk about it. Mark my words. The only other match I'm going to talk about now in terms of Death Before Dishonor is that spectacular main event. FTR defending the Ring of Honor tag team titles against the Briscoe brothers. They already had a match of the year candidate just a matter of weeks ago that people were raving about. And many, I believe, based on most of the reactions that I saw, felt that this match exceeded that. And this was incredible to me. Now, when I became a wrestling fan, when I was a kid, 5, 6, and 7, I was already a fan. But I think what kept me a fan was the run that the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs had in the mid-'80s, in 85, 86, 87 together. Worked a lot of matches. I saw those two teams wrestle more times than I can count. And I think that I was a little on the fence with wrestling when I first got into it, because I was a kid. I still liked toys. I still was trying to decide if I liked Hulk Hogan or He-Man. So even though I liked wrestling, I had other interests too. But once I got kind of hooked on the Bulldogs and the Harts, I was fascinated as a young kid watching those matches, being 10 years old, just being like, fucking tag team wrestling was so exciting to me as a kid. I took tag team wrestling seriously as a kid. That's why Bret Hart became my favorite wrestler. I've told this story a bunch of times. There was something about tag team wrestling that I liked so much. I would play wrestling with my friends. We would always have tag team matches because there was like 4 of us, and we did this all the time. I was obsessed with tag team wrestling. And even though tag team wrestling made a little bit of a rebound in the Attitude Era, the teams were really over the top. It was the Dudleys and Hardys and Edge and Christian. Nothing has reminded me and giving me that feeling of when I was a kid watching the Hearts and Bulldogs since then, up until now. Briscoes and FTR, these matches were so fun, and the match last night was so fun. This was 2 out of 3 falls, by the way, should be noted. And they went 40 minutes. FTR won 2 falls to 3. They had something for everyone there. They had doomsday devices. I think it was Cash and Mark Briscoe who did the Mind Games table spot off the second rope. Doomsday device, I believe, did win the first fall. The finish was the middle rope pile driver. That damn sure better been the finish. When I saw that, I'm like, holy crap, if he kicks out of this, that might be one too many near falls there to stomach. And luckily it was the finish. But between the wrestling, the drama, the back and forth, the near falls, the spots, I think there was only one botch that I really picked up on in this entire match. It was beautiful. 40 minutes of exquisite beauty. And if you're a wrestling fan that loves wrestling, I don't know how you can look at this match and not put it on your list for match of the year, or maybe even one of the best tag team matches you've ever seen in your life. And I've seen a lot. And this is going to be up there. It's going to be up there. I mean, I'd have to really analyze it if I want to see where exactly I'm going to place Briscoes and FTR, where in my top 10 I'll place it, how far to the top it gets. Does it get to number 1? I don't know. All I know is last night's match made me proud to be a wrestling fan. Last night's match made me so happy that FTR made the decision to leave WWE and continue their quest to be the best tag team in the world somewhere else. They're walking around with 3 sets of championships right now. I truly believe that they are one of the best teams. We do have some great tag teams right now in wrestling. We got a couple of amazing teams in WWE, one specifically in the Usos, along with the Briscoes and FTR and the Bucks. Across all promotions here, wrestling fans have been gifted some wonderful tag teams. There's some great teams, and watching Briscoes and FTR, even though the matches were quite different than Bulldogs and Hearts, they were a little bit similar. You know, Bulldogs and Hearts didn't take it to the modern day extreme that these two teams did, but you can see so many influences in Dax and Cash's work, and I root for them because they're North Carolina boys. They're from Asheville. I'm from Wilmington, but I'm a North Carolina kid as well, and I love the area of the state where they live. Edge lives near them. Asheville's beautiful. If you go to Asheville, you're going to meet great people. There's great beer and breweries there, amazing weed, great place to be. So I'm going to naturally root for them anyway, and seeing them succeed, seeing them get out of WWE, the run they had in NXT, and then some of their disappointments in WWE, leaving, going to AEW, and winning championship after championship after championship, and really proving themselves, and even working in singles. They worked against each other in the Owen tournament. Dax, I think, if it was in a different life, would have a hell of a career as a single star. Plus, they know the way to my heart. These guys are Bret Hart marks. Of course, Bret was my all-time favorite wrestler ever, and they borrow a lot from Tully and Arn, Bulldogs, Hearts, and I love that. And everything the teams were doing was well paced out. They knew each other so well. The Briscoes were all in too in the losing efforts, which I think they should get paid back for this at some point in the future because they dropped both matches, right? FTR beat them in both battles here. And it was an amazing match. I just loved every minute of it. It was so fun. And even though I was kind of watching it on high speed, I was like, I'm watching something special here. So, I own the pay-per-view now, so I'll go back and watch it whenever I want, and if I want to relive that again. But I was so proud and so happy to be a wrestling fan watching that because it did remind me of old NXT. It reminded me of DIY and the Revival, or American Alpha, or Matthews and Murphy, or whatever the fuck. All those great teams they had in those early days of NXT. That was great tag team wrestling too. And WWE, the main roster stuff, even though the Usos and New Day and Street Profits are fantastic, I don't know, I appreciate this more. You know what I mean? It's just something a little better and grittier about it. And I'm just a massive fan of FTR. Massive fan. So overall, the pay-per-view was great. I missed most of the media scrum. The only thing I caught there was Danielson. Bryan Danielson has been cleared and will return to the ring this Wednesday to take on Daniel Garcia at Fight for the Fallen. Other than that, I didn't really catch much of that. And all the other news I got to catch up on tonight. So I apologize for having a little bit kind of a flimsy of a podcast. I also don't know what the hell's going on SmackDown with Max Dupree. With LA Knight, apparently he's been removed out of the Maximum Male Models. They've replaced him with his sister, and they're moving forward there, and there were some issues with LA Knight creatively, and who knows how the Vince McMahon absence will play into that. So I got to kind of brush up on my knowledge on that. I'm really not sure what's going on there, but I'll try to learn about that, and we'll discuss it on the next podcast. So, yeah, I'm about out of breath. Diamond Mine. Oh, that's what it was. Media scrum was Daniel yelling at Wheeler. I saw that because I saw some lady kind of like, oh, shit, or whatever. And I saw Daniel going, I thought you guys could fight. You just pinned me with a roll-up. I'm like, he still beat you, bitch. So I did think that was funny. Wish John Cena was Ric Flair's last opponent. That would be good. But anyway, I'm really exhausted. I've had a long day. I've had a long weekend. It's just crazy at work. I've worked crazy since Thursday night, Friday night, last night. Then I had to go in and do some brunch this morning, which was a pain in the ass, and then rush home. And I was only home for about 45 minutes before I had to flip the camera on and do my podcast. So I need to chill if that's okay with you guys. I appreciate you being here on this very rare Winged Eagle Sunday. Most Sundays we're up here doing classic pay-per-view watch-alongs. Those will resume 2 weeks from tonight. We're going to pick it up probably with SummerSlam 1990, and then we're going to get into fully loaded 2000 the week after that. But it's going to be a big week here on the channel. Maybe tomorrow night you'll see me for a review for Madison Square Garden Raw, but I doubt it. Wednesday night Dynamite watch along will be up here Friday for SummerSlam predictions, and then less than 1 week from today, this coming Saturday, SummerSlam full show review coming up immediately after the PLE goes off the air. So you guys have a great rest of your Sunday evening. Thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you in probably a day or so. Can't wait. Y'all be cool. Peace.